be a little late.
We're live.
Okay, great. I'll call this meeting then of the Salem City Council Legislative Committee to order. President Bennett.
Hoy.
Anderson.
Lewis.
And then staff to be identified. Okay, Courtney, what do you got planned for us here?
The first thing on the agenda is because I was unable to make the connection to YouTube when we last met on December 4th. The first thing on our agenda is a consideration of approval of some old-fashioned minutes
Okay,
last time we gathered.
I just need a motion real quick.
As an old-fashioned person myself, I move to approve the minutes.
Okay. Any objections? Okay.
One abstention because I wasn't there.
Okay. All right. They're approved. Go ahead. What else you got?
Well, we have an update that we're hoping to get from Justin, and as we noted a moment ago, he's in a conversation right now.
Okay.
Then we were going to just get updates on the legislative priorities, and you would have gotten a couple of follow-up materials from me. I forwarded to everyone a copy of the session calendar, and
Okay.
we understand it, these first couple of weeks, they're planning to be entirely remote.
Yeah.
And we also just heard, I don't remember if it was Tuesday, we understand there are going to be bills that are going to drop shortly.
What again? Say that again. You dropped off for a second.
I'm sorry, 2,300 bills are expected shortly.
That's half of them.
But they will be meeting remotely in the beginning. We're not sure if it's the first 3 months that's going to be virtual or the first couple of weeks, but for certain they will be virtual in the beginning.
At least for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The media is reporting that the Capitol's closed until March
Yeah.
to the public.
And the session is supposed to begin on the 19th.
Okay.
And so you'll have a brightly colored calendar that's in 2 columns in your packet. And then as well, we got out the standing committee appointments for both the Senate and the House. So you'll have those in your email as well.
Okay.
I've got a question about that. And
Yeah, go on.
It relates to the fact that the Capitol building and grounds are in our fair city. And I have seen reports, they may or may not be substantiated, that one particular representative opened the doors and let people in to destroy the Capitol. And well, it's Representative Neerman, and I just looked through the committee assignments to see what had happened, and I see he is only Justin. Did you hear what I've been saying?
No, I just
Okay.
got in.
I'm talking
apologize
about
for-
we're talking about committee assignments, and I'm raising the issue of Representative Neerman, who has, if reports are true, allowed people to get in the Capitol and increase the vandalism to our Capitol and increase the level of tension in our city.
I'm more concerned that some of our folks were actually injured by the
Yes.
spray. I'm not sure what the vandalism looked like so much as
Yeah,
that's the part that really
you're
worries.
exactly right, Chuck. And it's
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
damage to persons is much more
Yeah.
crucial than damage to property. And that's been what our police department has put out all through the entire situation. Is our first goal is to protect persons from violence, and the second goal is property, and that's the way
Right.
it should be. And I looked through the committee assignments just to see what had happened, and I see he's only on 2 subcommittees now. One is Ways and Means something, and the other is a Ways and Means Technical Committee. And I'm just wondering if that is, Justin, maybe you could tell us if that's in reaction to what he is alleged to have done, because I know that the speaker was saying, this aggression shall not stand, to quote the dude from
Lebowski.
just quote the dude, from the Lebowski.
Awesome. Well, Counselor, I couldn't speculate on that, not without speaking directly with her or her staff about it. But in the previous call I just had, his name came up with the co-chair, and as did Senator Hurd. So you guys can imagine there are discussions going on around that. You know, I never want to say anybody's insignificant within the process, because they're not. They represent people just like you do. But these types of things do sometimes have consequences within the process and within their respective caucuses. So
And again, just speculating, I had no idea whether he was insignificant or not, but it seems to me that insignificant people, however you want to call that, define that, are the people who end up doing idiotic things like this.
yeah, and as you can imagine, he represents some other folks that I represent. So it's a tricky situation, as everybody knows. So
Well, and I would just like to say that, you know, as the legislative committee for the city of Salem, and, you know, we have credible information that we have a member of the legislature who is directly undermining our ability to help secure the building and keep people safe, and actually who put our staff in harm's way.
Yes.
We need to, that's just egregious and outrageous. And I don't know if at some point we can say something as a city, but in our individual capacity, we certainly can. This is just unacceptable and can't happen. I mean, our officers were harmed because of his actions.
Exactly.
And that's not
And Justin, I think you should feel very comfortable sharing with the speaker and with the president that we are very concerned that this occurred and that it resulted in injury to our people, and we don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
We have enough trouble with everybody else. We don't need the people inside the building causing us trouble as well. So I hope you'll share very, very strongly, at least from my elected officials' point of view. I don't know how the manager and chief want to handle it, but from our point of view as the committee that deals with the legislature and part of the leadership of the city council, that this is just absolutely viewed by us as unacceptable behavior. And we really hope there will be strong measures taken to correct this problem. At least take away their damn key, if nothing else.
If I could.
I think Lewis wants to talk.
Yeah, the way it's been described here, it's obviously a criminal action.
Yes.
So has there been charges made? And if not, why not?
State police, and we haven't heard from the state police yet on whether they're going to level charges, or the leadership of the House.
You know,
Or
I may
the
be
district
from
attorney.
the old school, but if you don't rein in your children and discipline them, they're simply going to run amok.
Yeah, I think you get the sense of it, Justin, and I hope you will share it with them that we are really bothered by this.
yeah,
We are outraged. That's the word I would use.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I'm looking for justice, and if we've got somebody who committed a crime, prosecute.
Yep.
But on the other hand,
Agreed.
if there isn't any, then let's get off it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, Mr. Mayor and council, it sounds like you guys are okay when I'm having my conversations with the Salem delegation, and we're putting together all of our background information for them going into session. We certainly won't put this stuff in writing, but
Right.
I can have that conversation with them while I'm going through our priorities and
Yeah.
what we're focusing on for 21.
Yeah. Share them in the strongest terms possible.
Great. Okay. Sorry I'm late, Courtney. I can't cut off the co-chair of Ways and Means. And much like myself, I think he was pretty coffeeed up this morning also.
We speculated which one of you would be most long-winded in that conversation. While you
Good. I was proud of myself that I had a 10:30. He didn't come on till about 10:38, 10:39, and I was done by 10:54. So I was pretty proud my job. I wish you guys could have seen it, but yeah, then of course I see my cell phone ringing from Nikki, and it's like, oh, I know I'm in trouble now. So that was.
I hate to interrupt, but as the new guy on the block, I'm going to play as dumb as I can as long as I can. So, Justin, what role are you in this committee?
Great. Well, Counselor,
He runs it.
Well, that's great. Let me, if I can, Courtney, I assume it was my portion of the agenda that was late. So maybe I'll do a quick little intro and then focus really on my meeting this morning, if that's okay with the committee.
That would be perfect. We've done the agenda minutes. We've talked about the legislative calendar and the committee appointments. And so, yes, you are up. Thank you.
Great.
And I'm sorry, just to interrupt, but does Jim know that Justin is our lobbyist?
He's going to find out right now.
That's what he's
Presumably.
a paid lobbyist.
And just so he doesn't do one of these government affairs specialist baloney, let's just go with lobbyist here.
I am a lobbyist, and I'm
Okay, there we go.
Going into my 25th year in the building. So good morning, everybody. And Counselor Lewis, I will introduce myself, Justin Martin. Proud to be your lobbyist. As I said, I've been in the building for 26 years now, 24 some as a lobbyist. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm really proud to represent my city. I'm born and raised here in General Hospital, which was torn down over where our Yaquina Hall project will be, but in that area. And I'm really thrilled to represent my city. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity. So thank you to everybody. You guys heard me wax on last meeting and looking at the minutes. Not only am I proud to represent the city, but we've got a really strong staff that's committed to doing the right thing, committed to getting the information in the right hands, and they really make my job easier as your advocate. And I can't tell you, it's not just me saying this, right? When I have conversations with, whether it's the home builders or I have conversations with the League of Cities or even the Association of Counties or the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, everybody notices and everybody talks about Jason and Eunice, and they know our staff by name. And, I'm only mentioning a couple, but I'm really proud to do that. I'm really proud to be part of this team. So my role as your lobbyist is really mainly just an educator with the legislature. So I take what we all discuss in this legislative committee as priorities, what you guys vote on as a council, and then I get that in front of those legislators. You guys utilize my relationships over the past 20 plus years to be able to do that. And we've had a lot of success in the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm very excited to continue that in this new year of 2021.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If I may add to that, Justin, you also get the same kind of comments about the staff from us as counselors. They do an excellent job, and we appreciate what they do. So thank you, everybody whose names and microphone with the slash through them is all I can see now.
Great. Well, thank you. And thanks, Mr. Mayor and Council, for letting me do that quick little introduction. In shifting now to really our priorities. You've seen all the calendar dates, you've seen the committees. As everybody knows, I'm in a hoodie sweatshirt doing the first commission, our first legislative committee meeting of the year. This is going to be a different legislative session. I'm hopeful that it will run smooth, but it's one thing to be optimistic. First 3 months are going to be virtual. It's going to be very difficult. But again, I think where we have some kind of an advantage is you guys have relationships with the legislature, and I have relationships with the legislature that allow us to do things in terms of access and contact that not everybody has. That's deep relationships, and we still have the ability to influence and do outreach. And so we've been working on that hard, not so much as we have in the past with person-to-person and point-to-point relationships. But we still have that opportunity. We've got most everybody's texter in our phone, and you guys, again, have those deep relationships to be able to make this work. So I'm excited about that. We don't have kind of the Goliath ask that we had during last session, which was our big water project and a $20 million ask, which we were able to achieve. And so in focusing on our priorities this time, I think we're looking pretty good. And I think those are very legitimate asks in a time that's really been ravaged by the pandemic and people not being able to get together to work. So in my quick report here on what we expect to see, I just had a meeting with the co-chair of Ways and Means on the House side. His name is Dan Rayfield. He's out of Corvallis, very instrumental in helping us with our water funding last time. He's very good in understanding our needs and really appreciates the fact that we're able to get him that information in a clear and concise manner. No strong reactions that he didn't feel good about our priorities. He was encouraged that we're already in a bill for the navigation center for that $5 million. As you all know, that walkout cost us that in the short session. They didn't really solve that quorum problem, so we'll see how this session plays out. I hope there's not that kind of vitriol within the process. But again, as we all know, the state of politics, both on the national level and even at the state level, are pretty heated right now. But there was no big pushback. Totally understood Yaquina, which is one of our main priorities. He liked not just that it wasn't a huge price tag, it's not a small price tag by any means, but he understood the value of what you are trying to do with that property in terms of the affordable housing for that segment of the population. That certainly fits within the speaker's priorities, that fits within the Democratic caucus's priorities. And he did not see any real problems with that. So that's exciting. Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. What are we asking at this point? The Yaquina conversation kind of has been a little bit circular, and I'm not sure what the current ask is. What do we need from them?
Yeah, the number's 3.1. And if we've got Jessica or Sarah on right now, it'd be great if they want to detail that out for you, Counselor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Jessica with Salem Housing. So we have Yaquina's ask right now is 3.1 million. They were able in the special session to also fix that 4% tax credit floor, which is huge for us. So that's going to add some value to the project as well. And our timeline at this moment, we're looking at a closing date of 10/15 for financing close. So we're trying to get all of that wrapped in together. We're still kind of preliminary waiting for the cost estimates to make sure those still align, because we've had to redo several reports many times. But as of this moment, that 3.1 would be an all encompassing number, and we would be able to make it to our project closing date of 10/15.
Thank you. But just to clarify, is that actual cash or is that in kind also, like just giving us the property?
That's just the cash for the financing.
So 3.1 is the total need, and that's comprised of a couple of things that you might have memory of hearing us talk about. So the things are parking lot improvement. We think that's 1.2 to 1.5. That's part of that 3.1 ask. And then there's also a delay that we've experienced that has been costing us money, and that is estimated to be 1.3. There's a little tiny bit of cost for street improvements that we're being asked to deliver. So that's almost 300,000. So it's those three components: the parking lot improvement, the street improvement, and then the cost of delay that could get us to 3.1 million in total. So I know it's been confusing because this has been an ongoing situation, and we've certainly addressed individual pieces, but pulling it all together, we're asking for 3.1 million to deliver the project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Jim?
Yeah, I'll phrase it these probably a long time. This is another catch-up question. So it's my understanding that the last session, the navigation center, and I think, Justin, you mentioned this, was in a bill. Wasn't the sobering center also in an existing bill? Or was it just navigation center?
The sobering center is a couple sessions ago.
Okay, right.
We were awarded some funds for some capital money, which we needed the operating funds. And so we ended up having to turn that back.
Okay.
And then to finish that point, Counselor, before for your next question, that came up in the conversation I talked about that with Representative Rayfield, needing $1 million there, and then looking at other programs, might need some funding in those areas as well. So he's aware of that. And again, there was no like, that's not going to be possible, or, oh, that's going to be a huge lift. He was like, okay, that makes sense.
All right. Well, it was there. It was there. My real question is, and this will show my inexperience, I guess, but because these two issues were in previous legislation bills that didn't happen, if they were to happen this year, is there any way of generating the funds quicker? Like, could there be an emergency clause that would allow us to generate those funds after the bill is passed, so we don't have to wait until next year?
I'd leave that question to, I don't know, Josh or some of our financial folks. How quick do we need those funds?
I thought there was an emergency clause. I think
Is
the
there-
It should
Center,
be
it has to
upon
be spent.
passage.
Sorry, Justin, go ahead.
It should be upon passage. And I'm not looking at the language right now, but I think it was upon passage, so the funds would be available. That being said, the dynamics, or how that gets to us and gets in the field, I don't know that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I remember there was some question, pause, concern when it was active last session about whether they were tentative to give it to us because they wanted a commitment we would spend it within 6 months. So I don't know if that's in the current concepts that are being discussed, but there was definitely some urgency for that issue in spending those funds.
There really was. And it's always frustrating, Counselor, to see when you have a funding package and an issue that has been worked through and everybody was going to benefit, whether you're a Republican legislator from Salem or a Democratic legislator from Salem, and then, a walkout like we saw in 19 and 20, and that kind of funding just goes away. It's very frustrating, and not just frustrating for us, but also for the legislature as a body as well.
Yeah, Tom.
Well, my point is looking forward, maybe those are good things to talk about to push the bill today, get it done. Use it to our advantage.
Tom?
Yeah, thanks. We've kind of danced around this issue a bit when we're talking about the walkout, and then we're also the last walkout and whether anything might happen in the future. And I am just curious. I think we've got one Republican who, I'm thinking of Raquel Moore Green, who's been on our budget committee, who's been very active in what goes on with the city of Salem. And I don't know if there are other Republicans in the Salem area itself. I don't think it is. I think they're all Democrats. So is there any point at all in trying to talk to any Republican in Salem saying we need these things? If there is the concern about a walkout. I don't think there is. I just wanted to raise the issue. I think party loyalty would trump city loyalty.
The walkout was a Senate issue.
Okay.
I think you have to kind of,
So we've gained in the Senate walkout then, I think.
well,
Hey,
we're
okay.
even.
Okay.
I mean, just to close that point, I mean, when I talked about how, political and how Team A and Team B on some of these issues have become, you remember part of funding, I don't know if it was 20 or there was a big portion in there for the city of Turner. And we were hoping to leverage that because the Republican leader, Senator Girard, would be bringing home a lot of bacon to finish that project in Turner. And even so, they still walked out. So,
Okay.
It's even presenting that type of information in the hopes that would keep somebody at the table. And you've heard me say this before. I really feel strongly if Jackie Winters, and I'm sure the mayor, shares this sentiment after working with her for so long. I mean, if Jackie was still there, her and Peter probably would have sat down and figured out a way to work this out. So it
Yep.
wouldn't be a blemish on the process and on the institution of the legislature. Unfortunately, we didn't see a change this election that's going to get rid of that quorum
Okay.
issue. There's discussion about putting something into statute or trying to do something this session. But unfortunately, even with the, kind of the carrot of getting your funding for your own district, wasn't enough to overcome kind of political ideology. And that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Fortunately, the walkout was specifically issue oriented, and whether or not that issue comes up in the same configuration, I think, and how that's worked out between House and Senate will be the decider. I don't think that any of them want another walkout, so hopefully they'll find a better solution than, the nuclear option or whatever they're viewing this as.
And that's a very good point. And just to close, Courtney, so I keep us on schedule, just to close with that point, I mean, it's still an option, but I don't know within a virtual, a half virtual session, which I'm assuming might become more than just a 3-month virtual session. We're still going to see those types of things, but I think, and you've seen in our own legislative agenda, even though we strive to be narrowly focused every session, whether there's a pandemic or not, I'm hoping some of that vitriol and some of that will be kind of pushed into a compressed time frame where we don't see the kind of actions that we've seen in the past. Again, I'm trying to be optimistic there. But again, going into 21, I think we've got a good narrow focus in terms of budget and what we need to get done. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we will do that. Big issues like Cap and Invest, big issues like, fortunately, we got the big transportation plan done in 2017, but those big type of issues, I don't know if there's room for that in a virtual session, especially getting public input and how just the process is going to work again, but we will have to wait and see. So that being said, I think we've got a really good focus. And again, I thank our staff for getting all that information to us where we're able to share that with the co-chairs of Ways and Means. And as I say that, let me shift into, I've heard anywhere from 3,200 to 3,600 bills are going to be released here in the next couple of weeks. So I will be in front of Nikki and I will be in front of a computer screen going through that. Your staff will be going through that. For Councilor Lewis, part of my job as well in going through those bills is to try to find what's politically feasible and what isn't, so we don't burden our staff with going through mountains and mountains of legislation that really has no hope in hell of passing. So we will do our job to weed that out, get that in front of the staff. We're going to see things again like middle housing. We're going to see things again like, Jason's on the call. We're going to see, Paul Evans with his plastic piping. We're going to see, prevailing wage. We're going to see issues that we know we don't like or maybe don't agree with to a point. We've got the League of Cities, we've got counties, we've got other organizations that tend to fight those unfunded mandates for us. But all those things are coming, so we will be in somewhat of a reactionary period for a month or two. I will say we're looking forward to seeing what's coming out in that legislation. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's my update for now, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great.
So my question is just whether any of the members have any questions or concerns about some of the active work that city staff are involved in as these things are being drafted and discussed. But
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a little bit of a broken record here, but there's the new building codes stuff that's going on, and the mayor and I were tangentially involved in a group, and Chuck signed a letter that went out, and I've been meeting with folks who are interested in more energy efficient building codes. And at some point, I know you're going to sift through the bills to find that bill. And I really like us to take a look at that and take a position on that in front of the legislature as soon as we can. I mean, we need to see what it is.
Yeah.
And I know
I-
that Rabi is on one of the subcommittees. So we've got city input to it, at least, and maybe he could show up to help us when we get to that, Bill.
Yeah, a very good point. And I know you'll be watching for those kinds of bills that that specifically affect our delivery of services or ability to do that, because that's just how that bill will pop up on us. The other one I'm a little concerned about, and I want to make sure we have some understanding, is making sure we all understand that Justin is our lobbyist, and we will be designating staff and members of the committee or of the council to testify at the Capitol. I'm very concerned about people suddenly becoming freelancers and thinking they represent the city of Salem without portfolio. And I think that's a mistake, and it creates nothing but problems for the lobbyist and nothing but confusion at the legislature as people try to freelance this thing. We're trying very hard and have had quite a bit of success by staying very focused on an agenda, particularly looking at money, which is what we really need from the state because they don't pay us any taxes, and getting some of these projects, taking care of these high priority projects, and we can sometimes get lost. So I hope you all, as you talk to your peers and colleagues, and I'll be doing the same thing, that we really need to make sure people exercise some sort of collegial discipline in terms of going over there and just shooting their mouth off. Because there's a real temptation. Everybody thinks they're real good at this, and what you discover is you're not as good as you think. That's why I really rely, and I think we all ought to rely heavily on Justin and go through him to make contacts over there.
So just by way of background, we already have taken a series of legislative policy statements forward to the city council. So we have a foundation upon which we can sort of bat back those things that aren't aligned with the city's priorities, things that are just perennial favorites that don't support city policies or any of that. And then we also have some key priorities moving forward, which I think we've all spoken about. I try to keep them on the agenda as a way to remind us of our focus and those things that we want to push forward and try to achieve in this coming session. So we have those two pieces of foundation that help guide how we respond to some things in the moment. And then we have these meetings with the legislative committee where we try to address specific bills or specific priorities that are not already accounted for in those legislative policy statements or in our priorities. Our next meeting is set for February 12th, and we're on that kind of monthly cadence. And as we are heading into the thick of it, and some of these things are going to get legs, and you may want to be more, advocate more on specific bills, I wonder if you want to have a more frequent cadence of meetings as a legislative committee, because
I think so.
our practice is typically that the committee takes a stand and then we get that to the city council as a whole to move forward. Sometimes in shorter sessions, we ask the council's permission to use this body as the body for the city's voice. That helps us because it, especially in a short session when things are moving a little bit more quickly, that helps us respond to specific pieces more quickly. We have not yet asked the full council for that possibility this session. It's up to you whether you would want to put that forward. We could, or we could set our meetings on a little bit more frequent scale if you wish. It's entirely up to you.
I think just a thought that a good way to do it may be to use this Friday in advance of our meetings, at least early on, to get into a rhythm of where we're going to be on these bills, to help Justin understand where we're going on bills as they come to us, how the staff is responding. Would you guys be okay with one every couple of weeks? Would that be okay? We'll be doing Zoom, I think. I think this makes it really easy for all of us. We don't have to come down to City Hall. But I think that that would then allow us to report very quickly. And I understand that it doesn't fit exactly the agenda timing. They're going to have to change the agenda timing to accommodate us rather than us accommodate them. Their staff, we're not, and we need to have an opportunity to see as much as we can and report it out as an addition to the agenda. We'll leave that up to
Fine.
you, Courtney, to deliver that message to our friends that make all these decisions, okay?
I look forward to that conversation.
Bet you
I
do.
think, I think as an addition, these are easy. In my opinion, these reports tend to be fairly perfunctory and
Yeah.
certainly easy as a staff person to pull that together. And we'll make that work.
Does that work okay? Do you guys all agree that that kind of timing?
Definitely. In the beginning of the session, I feel like every 2 weeks is or twice a month is fine. Probably we'll have to adjust that as we get later in the
Right.
session, the more frequent. But in the beginning, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I think we'll get a sense, and Justin and Courtney, you will advise us, I'm sure, on the need for us to meet. But I hate to see us wait 4 weeks to meet and have suddenly 20 bills pop up, or because counselors are going to be interested in bills. I mean, we're going to want to talk about it. And so anyway, I think every 2 weeks. And Fridays work very well, I think, for this, unless there is a need to go to Thursday. But I think as close as we can get to having a timely agenda for the council to look at, the better.
Excellent.
Okay.
So you'll see a flurry of appointments added to your calendars and
Fine, if everybody's okay. Okay,
good.
good,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
So this is really just, again, a chance for you to check in with staff. I do have a report from Marcus Pitts that I'll just share briefly. He's in a committee meeting right now, and so was unable to join us today. And he's just reporting that it's the LMAC, what is it? Labor management, something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. This is
They,
Tom's area.
It's Labor Management Advisory Committee.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you for solving the A.
Yeah.
This is why we have these great workers' comp rates.
Yeah.
LMAC.
What he wanted to just report out is that currently that group has conducted an audit of 232 claims related to COVID. And they're finding that so far the investigation and the handling of those claims has been good and proper. And Marcus noted that that's really good news because it reinforces that presumptive liability isn't needed. So that's really good news for how they've been working through the issue, and I think inspired confidence among themselves that it's going well. So that's good news.
Courtney, excuse me. Yeah, I would say that's terrific news. And what LMAC does is the way things have been set up since, 20 years now since workers' comp reform, is that any proposal goes through that committee, which is labor and management. And if that committee signs off on it, it's basically a done deal. If they can't agree on it, then it gets to a more political thing of which way do we want to go, favor labor, favor management. But if they can agree to it, it moves really smoothly. So what you're telling me is that it's looking like that may well happen. Justin, do you have any other knowledge on that?
No, Counselor, I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
That's great. Okay, anyone else been attending of the staff? Do we have anyone else that should be reporting to us?
They've been doing quite a lot of work. I know there's some activity around economic development that's the same as it ever has been, which Sarah can fill you in on if you wish. And then there's also been a lot of conversation about housing, which Eunice or Jessica can update you on should you be interested.
Well, I think maybe just a quick kind of what's going on. What are they hearing on housing? Doesn't hurt.
Eunice, can you?
Whoever.
Sure. There are a lot of legislative concepts related to housing. It's still a priority, I think, of everyone. And the middle housing that Justin referred to is a middle housing land division process that would basically mandate that cities have to approve land divisions without really a process. So we're working with the League of Oregon Cities and just on the technical side of what that all means, what the implications are. There's a lot of different affordable housing ideas of how to expedite the construction of affordable housing that we're tracking. Those are the big ones.
Are there any mandate bills associated with affordable housing that would set up mandatory percentages or anything we should be thinking about as we see these issues come in front of us now, just potentially for the future?
No, I have asked about if there's any movement on inclusionary zoning or any interest of revisiting that and lowering the threshold, and that really hasn't been discussed. And so I don't anticipate it coming back in any form. Senate Bill 10, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, sorry.
I was going to say Senate Bill 10, the one that we had opposed, I don't know if it was last session or the session before, that was going to mandate density of housing around transit. It's expected to come back, but the version that I saw has to do with fixed route, which we don't have. We don't have dedicated lanes yet. We don't have, obviously, transit. So I don't think that's going to impact us, but we'll track that as well.
The other two things, is there any discussion of funding? I mean, are you hearing money mentioned? Does anyone talk in dollars, or do they just talk in
And that might be more
policy?
Jessica's
How
Jessica?
about mental health? Anything specifically associated between housing and mental health?
Yeah, so we're tracking with Oregon Housing the preservation funding for specific NOFAs that are coming out for the 4%, 9% tax credit, as well as new permanent supportive housing money for which Salem Housing is going after. It looks like right now they had anticipated there being $34 million, and now they're only expecting 19. And so they're some of the buckets are a little bit lower than what they thought they would be. But we're tracking those very closely as well as.
Great. And you'll keep us posted on those and Justin posted on those. Those funding bills become really important, I think, as we look at this stuff. Anything on mental health, is that the permanent supportive, or where does mental health fall into this, where we look at some sort of housing that targets? That's been a real issue for us, is dealing with mental health issues. Are there housing related discussions there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's wrapped up in the permanent supportive housing buckets, where they're really targeting the chronic homelessness right now, which has those aspects of mental health. And then there also is another bucket from Oregon Health Authority, which they're really focused on that mental health piece. And so we're tracking all of those different ones,
Right.
especially for Yaquina, because that is the specific dollars, the mental health housing funding that was originally allocated to that project.
Great. Okay. Well, to keep us posted on those. Those are of tremendous interest to us.
Of course. Of
Okay,
course.
thank you. Anybody? Anything?
Well, as long as we have Sarah, I wonder if we could just take a couple minutes on economic development and what those things are starting to look like.
Sure, thanks. Good morning, almost afternoon, everybody. So we've been tracking what we're seeing come out with respect to economic development. At this point, we're not seeing anything that's unexpected. So with that being said, we are expecting to see another bill tied to a partial disconnect of our opportunity zones, which we saw, I can't remember if it was the last session or the session before that we were opposed to. So we are expecting to see that again. I know I had sent out a communication just a little bit before Christmas regarding an employment waiver for our enterprise zones, because we are a little concerned that some of our businesses that are within the enterprise zones won't be able to meet the employment thresholds due to COVID. That is a bill that's already been generated. It's going through. It's a combo bill, I believe, between the Oregon Economic Development Association, the League of Oregon Cities. A lot of municipalities have obviously joined onto it as a support to our businesses. So we are expecting to see that bill move forward in this session, which would be a benefit to our folks that we have. So those are a couple of the things. One of the things that we're not sure of, and we'll see how it all shakes loose, there are some concerns just overall, some of the disconnects, especially tied to some of the CARES funds. And what does that mean to our business community that's received the PPP loans, the EIDL funds, things like that. So we're not sure what it means, but it is something that's definitely being looked at a very high level to see what is the impact to our business community. And then I'm sure there'll be conversations, what does that mean to our, municipality funds and things like that. So I would expect that something will be coming forward in that regard, but we're tracking everything right now that could impact our business community, because obviously, they've been going through a lot in the past year.
Great.
Sarah, I'll just add for those who may not see the connection between enterprise zones and employment, just really quick background. It's so simple. I'm sorry to do this, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that in an enterprise zone, you get a tax benefit as long as you maintain a certain threshold of employment. And so what Sarah is noting is that it's becoming more and more challenging for some of our businesses who are enjoying the benefit of an enterprise zone designation. And so we're just trying to help even that out a little bit so that they don't have to meet those same employment thresholds and can still maintain that benefit during this COVID recovery. Thanks so much, Sarah.
You're welcome. There's also a study taking place right now statewide about the benefits of enterprise zones, specifically tied to the prevailing wage issues tied to construction projects. And we've sort of had that creep up in the last couple of sessions. I don't know what's going to come out of that study, but we're hoping, and I don't know if Justin's heard anything either. I'm hearing that their plan is to have some actual data for this session to hopefully support our enterprise zones if that conversation does come back forward. So when we see what that kind of study and that information is, we'll definitely bring it forward as well. SEDCOR has represented Salem in terms of actually contributing to that.
So SEDCOR will be the data provider from our region. Is that the?
Eco Northwest is doing the study itself. There was an ask statewide for municipalities, communities, organizations that receive benefits from enterprise zones to contribute to it. One of the challenges that has come up in the last couple of sessions is, although we can speak to the benefits of enterprise zones in terms of business recruitment and employment, there's been this conversation of what has the impact been tied to construction, prevailing wage. Is there really this big of a gap that the labor industries are saying that there is? So part of what this study is doing is really looking at that to hopefully provide some real information. I think they started the work in November or December, and it seems like they're really trying to expedite it. But what SEDCOR actually did is they contributed monetarily to this study on behalf of Salem, because SEDCOR does manage our enterprise zone program for us.
Okay.
So we'll have additional information coming your way.
Okay. Anything else, Courtney, or anybody? Any questions?
I don't think there's anything new. I think you've heard from staff over the fall months. We were able to report on a lot of the activity that staff were involved in the committees and things. And I don't think there's anything new other than these topics I wanted to make sure we addressed of housing and economic development.
Okay, sounds great. Any other business for the committee then? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're adjourned, and we'll meet again in what? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, what?
I'll try to put one on right before the January 25th meeting, and then we'll have them.
Very good. Okay.
The Fridays before.
Excellent.